Got to bring on now Alex Kozora from Steelers Depot. What's up, man? Good morning.
Hey, Joey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Dude, it's I gotta say, it's really exciting to talk to you. I've been listening to Steelers Depot for a long time. My dad is a absolute religious listener of Steelers Depot. He takes everything that you and Dave say as gospel. So it's great to talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm just excited for the draft to finally be here. We speculate and we talk about who the pick's going to be, and then we're all probably wrong. And it just, the fun and the magic of draft season.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hop in, man. 2024 right now on Thursday night in the first round. I was just talking with Kevin Bowen. I mean, everything that we're seeing, it's pointing towards Najee Harris, right? What are your thoughts? Would you like that? Who do you think they're going to go with?
Yeah, my final mock draft for Steelers Depot, I mocked them Najee Harris. I think that it just comes down to a couple of factors. Mike Tomlin loves feature backs. He wants a 3-down guy. He doesn't like the committee approach to it. He wants someone to be his lead guy. And if you don't take a Najee Harris or a running back in that first round, trying to find that feature back in rounds 2 or 3 gets a lot tougher. I think there's better depth along the interior and offensive line and offensive tackle than there would be trying to find that feature back in say rounds 2 or 3. And then just the pre-draft interest. Every single Steelers first-round draft pick has had Mike Tomlin and or Kevin Colbert at their pro day since 2010. And Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert were at Alabama's pro day. Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach, was there for Harris's second pro day where he actually worked out and went through drills. So all the signs point to that. It's not that it's guaranteed to be Harris because he may not be there at 24. The Dolphins are sitting there at 18. They need a running back, and so he could be off the board. And it's going to be a William Jackson, Artie Burns situation where the Steelers were going to take William Jackson, and then he's gone one pick ahead, and they have to settle on Artie Burns, and it doesn't work out. So Dickerson, I think from Alabama, if they're comfortable with the medical, that could be a pick as well. And there's always a dark horse sleeper, and Asante Samuel, the corner from Florida State, Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State, Zayvon Collins from Tulsa. We'll see, but I think right now Harris is the favorite.
So is there any chance that if Harris is gone, goes to Miami, that they would still go with running back and a guy like Travis Etienne if he's there?
Sure, I think that's possible. If you want ETN, you're going to get somebody more dynamic, someone that's going to produce bigger plays in this run game. I just think overall, though, because there was a report that came out last week that they would narrow down to 3 guys. It was Dickerson, Jenkins, and Harris. And what all 3 of those guys have in common is they're tough, they're physical, they're going to improve kind of the short yardage and the power run game. And this team really needs it because they've been so brutal in short yardage situations. And so I don't know if ETN would fill that to that same degree because he's not the power physical type of back to that degree that a Najee Harris is. But sure, I think that, because you have 3 top running backs in this class. You got Harris, you got ETN, and Javonte Williams. I don't think any of those 3 make it to 55. So if you don't take a running back at 24, you're saying, okay, we're going to take the tier 2 running back, Trey Sermon, someone like that in rounds 2 or round 3. So that is certainly possible. And again, they were at Clemson's pro day, Tomlin, Colbert, and Matt Canada, the new OC. So the interest is obviously there.
I don't know, man. I still think that we got something there with the Derek Watt short yardage package.
They got to put him on the field. They got to play him.
I haven't seen enough of that from the wild card game against the Browns where lined it up, it worked, and they said, "Yep, we're going to line up the same way again, and we're going to shove it to Derek Watt, and we're going to get stopped."
Yeah.
So you mentioned Matt Canada. What Fichtner out? A lot of people are very happy about that. Canada in. What can Steelers fans expect from him, from his offense, and who would be a guy offensively that would fit for him in this draft?
Well, I think there's a lot of unknown there because he's never been an NFL OC before. A lot of experience in the college game. We'll see what ideas work for him in the NFL and what ideas don't. I think one thing we're very likely to see is pistol. And what that's going to do is the combination, because Ben does not like being under center. That's the worst kept secret in football. He does not want to be under center, but you want to get more of a downhill run game, use more play action. The Steelers have been just horrible in using play action and terrible in being effective with play action. So pistol's kind of that middle ground of let's get Ben away from center, but still create downhill run action because the running back's right behind you as opposed to being next to you. So I think that's one thing we're going to see. Other than that, you're going to see more pre-snap motion. You're going to see more jet plays, more jet sweeps and things like that. I don't know if it's going to be super collegey because you're still going to be focused on things that Ben likes and he's comfortable with and things that work well with him. So I don't know how much different it's going to look overall, but I think we're going to find out. And then in terms of guys who fit, I just think he wants good football players. That sounds like the most football cliche thing to say in the world. Like, we just want good football players. But I just think, if you have good talent, you can work them into your scheme no matter what it is. You'll match personnel, you'll match scheme to what fits best for your offense. So Could you get someone more exciting like an ETN or Kenneth Gainwell, the running back receiver from Memphis, who can kind of be more of a dynamic type of guy? Maybe, but I think if you just get some really good football players, rebuild this offensive line, then it doesn't really matter what you're calling because you just have a better team and a better line, and that kind of really opens up the entire playbook for you.
Where do you stand on Ben Roethlisberger, him coming back? I know a lot of people, it's very popular on Twitter to get retweets to trash, Big Ben and his play. So what are your thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger heading into 2021?
Yeah, I was happy that he's back. I think people somehow forgot about 2019 and how terrible that was and how much everyone missed Ben when they're going through the Mason Rudolph. And I know we both love Doug Hodges, but I mean, he's not going into the Hall of Fame the way that Ben is. So I think we have just such short-term memory. When Terry Bradshaw retired in, 83, okay, just find the next Bradshaw. Well, it took till 2004 to find the next Bradshaw. So there's just a lot of short-term memory there. I mean, obviously Ben, is not the same guy that he used to be. The deep ball was an issue last year. The Steelers offense in general was so limited. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't throw deep. So they just really had a small menu of plays that worked. But I think it's also worth pointing out that he'll have hopefully a full training camp preseason, which will always be nice. And then just, this time last year, he was learning how to throw again coming off that elbow surgery. He had to really restart from the ground up. He won't have to do that this year. He can kind of really hit the ground running, and it's probably a benefit to that as well. So I'm not expecting to see Ben be, 2004 throwing off defensive tackles Ben anymore. But I think I'm happy that my Hall of Fame quarterback is going to be, in the lineup in 2021.
Is there any chance that they trade up to try to get a quarterback if somebody falls?
I would be really surprised. And Kevin Colbert yesterday said it was, quote, very doubtful that they were going to trade up. Now, that's coach speak. You never know what's going to happen, but I would be pretty surprised. They only have 8 picks, and they have so many needs on this team. All of the holes they have to address, whether that's offensive tackle, center, running back, tight end, edge, slot corner, safety depth, potential off-ball linebacker. I mean, there are just a lot of issues on this team right now. So you never say never because you don't know what the draft is going to look like and who's going to fall and what offers are going to be available. But I think it's most likely they just sit at 24 and just stay there. Maybe they trade down a couple of spots, but I think trading up is pretty unlikely at this point.
Okay, but let's stay in the quarterback room. Dwayne Haskins, Mason Rudolph, Josh Dobbs coming back. Obviously, we know Dobbs more of a film room guy and a guy who had the headset on to help Big Ben out there on the sideline. What are your thoughts on the quarterback room? Are we going to see any improvement from Dwayne Haskins at all?
Well, I just want to know when we'll get to see Haskins. I guess in the preseason some, but once the regular season starts, hopefully he's not playing because that means that Ben stayed healthy and Rudolph was fine as number 2. I think what's really interesting about the quarterback room is they're in a really unique spot where they have 4 good quarterbacks on their roster right now, at least 4, capable, competent quarterbacks. Yeah. But we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be next year because Ben's probably going to retire and Rudolph and Dobbs are free agents. We don't even know who's going to be on this roster next season because all their contracts are expiring. Haskins will be a restricted free agent, so you have team control on him. But again, Rudolph's going to be a free agent. Dobbs going to be a free agent. Ben's contract expires. It actually voids right after the Super Bowl as well. So it's a really weird situation where I like the room this year. I think it's a really strong room top to bottom, a really good, 4 guys. But I have no idea what that room's going to look like 12 months from now. And that's just a spot the Steelers really have never been in before.
Will you be shitty if they do draft a quarterback at 24, cornerback? Like you mentioned, Asante Samuel. You dropped those list of corners who they've taken since 2010, and I had to go to the bathroom and get I got sick. I had to excuse myself. Do they have the ability? I mean, can they draft a guy early like that and turn him into something that's productive and good, or is it just a waste of a pick?
Well, I think there's a need there. Whenever you lose Mike Hilton and that bizarre saga of releasing Steven Nelson, I still struggle to wrap my head around how and why exactly that happened. I know it was for cap purposes, but it just seems so detrimental to your own team. So there's a big hole there in the slot position. Maybe you move Cam Sutton to the slot and sub package and have James Pierre and Justin Lane battle it out on the outside. So I think it's possible. And I think with Asante Samuel, what they love about him, they love bloodlines. They love guys whose dads played in the NFL. Devin Bush, Cam Hayward, Terrell Edmonds, all those guys had their fathers play professionally. And so that's going to be attractive to, I think, Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert. And he's a guy that, played on the outside of Florida State, but I think could kick to the slot because he's a little undersized at 5'10", $180. So it wouldn't, I'd be surprised if it was defense. They've done it for 8 straight years. I think this is the year they finally break that trend and go offense to really rebuild and become a more physical, tougher offense overall. But nothing would shock me again. If Harris is gone, then the board opens up because then it's like, okay, are we going to go Dickerson? Are we going to go, is Jenkins going to be available? Or do we want to go just a BPA and try to find a really good defensive player like, Asante Samuel Jr. So I won't discount it. They're going to draft a corner at some point. It's just a question of really when, to me.
Who do you prefer if Harris is there, or if Harris isn't there? You mentioned Jenkins, you mentioned Dickerson. Who do you like better?
I want Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be the pick, as they weren't at his pro day. Not Tomlin or Colbert, at least. But I would take Creed Humphrey. I think he's a plug and play 10-year center. And for a Pittsburgh Steelers franchise that, when they've won Super Bowls, they've had great centers. Whether that was Mike Webster or Dirk Dawson or Jeff Hardings, Marquise Pouncey. Like, this is the franchise that knows the value of a great center more than any other. So get me that guy. I like Dickerson. I'm just worried about the medical aspect. Obviously, they have more access to that information than I do. But if I was the Steelers, I would take Creed Humphrey, start him for 10 years, and be really happy about it.
Okay, so you're fine with addressing interior first and then moving outside to tackle. I mean, tackle obviously is important, but it's not to the point where it's like you're either taking Harris or you're taking a tackle. It's not to that point yet.
Yeah, I would rank center as a bigger priority, because I don't want BJ Finney to be my starting center. I'm fine with him as the backup and being the feel good, story of it all, but I want a starting center. And I can live with Banner and a core 4 tackle for a season. Plus, his tackle class is really deep. You can find good tackles in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. Tackle's probably deeper than any other position in this draft, or at least right up there. So I'd be more comfortable about finding that tackle later and getting center early.
See, I'm kind of of the opinion that if you can draft Najee Harris at 24, and then with your next pick, if you can get a guy like Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame, I wipe my hands. And I mean, to me, if you can do that 1-2, bang, bang, 1-2 punch, to me, that's like already an A draft. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. I mean, if you go offensive tackle, I could see them taking a Jalen Mayfield from Michigan at 55. I think that's entirely possible. I think whatever you do to upgrade this team, where your line's going to get better, your rushing attack's going to get better, you're improving your team overall. So whether that looks like, running back and then center, or offensive tackle, then running back, or, whatever combination you want to come up with, if you become more of a physical team and win the battle up front, it's AFC North football. You're playing against Baltimore, playing against Cleveland. You got to run the football and you got to stop the run. For me, just as a sidebar, to win the North, I know we're in a pass-happy league and Patrick Mahomes is throwing, backwards and stuff like that, but to win the North, you have to stop the run, because you're playing the Ravens, you're playing the Browns, you're even playing the Bengals. You're going to run the football with Joe Mixon. So it's still very much an old school division. And so you better run the football effectively and you better stop the run.
Juju comes back, signs a 1-year deal. Definitely mixed reaction. It feels like you got the Juju backers and then you got the different folks in Pittsburgh who hate Juju's guts. But it is what it is now. But do you think that with him only being back on a 1-year deal, Steelers love to get themselves some receiver value? Any chance that in the 2nd or 3rd round they pull the trigger on receiver again?
Probably not on day 1 or day 2, because they're just good with the here and now with bringing back Juju, like you said. But I could see them taking a day 3 guy, and that could be a slot guy, that could be a Z receiver. James Washington's going to be a free agent after this year as well, so that's a position that may have to be addressed. But I think, just as we've talked about, there are so many needs for this team right now. If you take the luxury of a receiver who's not going to play this year over a center that you need now, or offensive tackle that you may need now, or a running back which you desperately need now, or edge depth or tight end depth where there's nothing behind the starters, then I think that just kind of, it's not going to help you now. And you need guys that are going to help you win now, because this is your last year with Ben, or at least in all likelihood. And so you need to kind of make that push to say, let's build the best roster for 2021 to give us that one last chance to try to go win this thing. Will it happen? Probably not. This roster's worse than last year, but you want to at least make every attempt to win for the here and now. Okay,
so you think that Big Ben will be gone after this year. Do you think that the trio goes? I know Tomlin just got an extension. So maybe he stays, another year. But do you think once Ben goes, then Colbert goes, and then, a year or so after, then Tomlin goes? Are we looking at a complete overhaul once Big Ben finally says, I'm done?
Well, I think Tomlin's here for the long haul. He signed that extension through 2024, and I think they view him as that face of the franchise for whatever new era comes next, the post-Ben, post-Kevin Colbert era. And he's going to be the leader and the face and that stabilizing figure in that front office. Yeah, Ben, I think, is gone after this year. Not going to guarantee it, because it's Ben, and he could play till he's 45, because he's the most competitive dude in that locker room. Colbert, we'll see. I would like to think, I wouldn't like to think, I would probably say that he goes when Ben goes, because what's the point? I mean, you're going to stay here for 1 year for rebuild and then retire. So, I mean, nothing's guaranteed in that, but I would probably say that he goes whenever Ben goes as well. But Tomlin's going to be the guy that'll, carry this team from the Ben era to whatever this next era may be.
This is from Matthew in the comments. He says he wants to know, after addressing the run game, running back and offensive line, what position on the defensive side of the ball do you see the Steelers addressing first, right after addressing the run game?
I would say 2, slot corner, or at least corner in general, and then edge. I mean, behind you got TJ Watt, great player, the Hall of Fame track, defensive MVP snub. I know every Rams fan gets mad at me for saying that Aaron Donald shouldn't have won the award, and he is obviously deserving of it, but Watt was as well, if you ask me. But behind Watt and Alex Highsmith is nothing. Like, I think we're both the next man up at outside linebacker if those guys get hurt. It's really brutal there. And you saw the value of drafting a 3rd-round guy in Highsmith last year, because once Dupree went down, Highsmith came in the lineup and he played really well. Not at Dupree's level, but he still played really well overall. And so you have to protect yourself because you need a good pass rush to have this defense function in its fullest form. So I would say edge depth, and then slot corner, either as a starter if Sutton's going to stay on the outside, or slot depth even if Sutton kicks inside. So those are the 2 areas I'm looking at.
You got any big plans for draft night, for the weekend in general?
I mean, it's just me being a nerd and just staring at screens and just watching the draft. And are you an NFL Network guy or an ESPN guy? I've always had that debate about which one I should watch.
I got Rich Eisen behind me here on the shoulder. I got I'm close buddies with Daniel Jeremiah. He's been kind of a mentor to me, so I tend to go wherever Rich and Daniel Jeremiah are. I'm big fans of theirs, so NFL Network is probably where I'd lean when I'm not on the NFL draft show for Barstool, for my company. So
okay.
I tend to go with Rich and DJ. What about you?
Yeah. I'm NFL Network too. I used to be ESPN, but then I was watching with the Combine. I watched Mike Mayock. I love when Mayock was on there as an analyst. He was my favorite guys to watch. Let me ask you as well. Do you remember back in the 10, 15 years ago when the draft used to be all weekend, just Saturday, Sunday, and there's a marathon? Do you remember those days?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you prefer the current setup? The 3-day weekend, first round Thursday. I love the weekend of it. Just marathon, just basically morning to night, Saturday, Sunday was like perfect for me.
Yeah, no, I hear it. It's very nostalgic, and having that where it's like, where you could have like a legit draft party, on Saturday, and it's at noon and you're grilling out and you're having, at the time just sodas, but now you'd think have a few, cold beverages and everything like that. I hear you, but there's something about that hype on Thursday night, man. The prime time. I don't know. I love waking up on Thursday. It's like I talked about it yesterday. I feel like it's like a short week. Like when you're in school, and you have like Thanksgiving on Thursday. I feel like it's just like the race to Thursday, and then you're there for the weekend. So I like the prime time on Thursday night. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I it probably is nostalgia. Just 8-year-old me just watching the draft, being like, "That's a great pick. That's a terrible pick." Just mock GMing as an 8-year-old. But I get the allure of the primetime lights.
One more from the comments here. The people are very concerned about the tight end position. People want to know if it can be addressed before the 5th round, and then somebody wants to know about Tommy Tremble.
I love Tommy Tremble. He's 20 years old. He says didn't get to play a ton at Notre Dame. He was always a backup number 2 guy. They had a 4-star or 5-star prospect at tight end this year that kind of took over. I think is probably the best blocker in the draft, one of the most aggressive guys. He wasn't used a lot in the pass game, but I think he can be a lot better NFL player than he was in college. Plus, he's got NFL bloodlines too. His dad played. Actually, his dad was on the Cowboys when they beat the Steelers in the 90s, in that Neil O'Donnell Super Bowl. His dad was on their gutter ring. Yeah. Yeah. That's how it'll forever be referred to. But yeah, I think tight end has to be addressed. And the stat I've given people, I think probably where the comment came from, was they haven't drafted a tight end above the 5th round since 2007, which just blows my mind that they have not invested heavily in the position. Now, tight end, this class isn't particularly strong. There's some decent guys at the top. The depth kind of falls off quickly. Watch out for a Penn State guy, Pat Fryermuth at 55. Steelers love him. Tight ends coach Alfredo Roberts absolutely loves this guy. They've had a lot of contact. I would not be surprised in the least if Pat Fryermuth was the guy at 55, or maybe Tremble at number 87.
Is Fryermuth, is he just like an upgraded, better version of Jesse James?
Yeah, I think to some extent. I mean, he's not a dynamic guy. He's obviously not Kyle Pitts, and he's not going to make a ton of plays downfield, but he's just a really tough dude with good hands. He's going to make really difficult catches middle of the field. So he's not an Ebron type of guy, but I think he's got starter potential and probably a better version of Jesse James. How about bring back Jesse James too? I mean, that would seem like a logical fit to reunite with James after the draft. That makes a lot of sense.
Nice. I love it. Alex, thanks so much for waking up with me, man. Like I said, I've been listening and following you and your Steelers input for years. So it's great to talk to you. Follow him just tell folks where they can follow you and see your work.
Sure. It's Twitter handles at Alex_Kozora, Kozora, and follow us at Steelers Depot. I will have on, I think, Wednesday or Thursday, a full 7-round mock draft for the entire NFL, all 259 picks. I've been doing that every year for 7-8 years now, and so you guys can look at that league-wide and tell me how I'm wrong. But thanks for having me on, Joey. I really appreciate it. Congrats on all your success. It's been awesome to see.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, are you going to be at Latrobe this July? Are you going to be out there?
If they let us in, I'll be there. If it's whatever I got to do, if I got to dress up as a kid with a big lollipop and a spinny hat and say, "Let me in, Mr. Rooney," I'm going to do it. But yeah, if it's open, I'll be there.
Awesome. I'll try to be out there as well, and maybe we can link up then. All right, man.
Sure
Enjoy the draft.
Right. Thank you. Take care.